Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting with Cameron Selby, and we've been doing a lot of videos for this weekend. We're going to be doing this video. This is a breakdown of the Sunday games. We're going to do both of the showdown slates between the Rams and Eagles, and then also the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, the game I am by far most looking forward to on the weekend because that is going to just be the best game. So kind of talking about it, though, we did also do a breakdown for the main slate, which is all 4 games, and then we did both of the Saturday games already, so those games are out if you haven't seen them yet, or if they haven't been played yet, you should go watch those to make sure that you can get in your own lineups for those games. But
yeah, and then again, when we broke down the first one, not really much weather impacting either game, so it wasn't that big of a deal, kind of a moot point. On the Sunday, because the cold fronts are coming in and all that good stuff, it's worth noting that the weather could definitely impact this slate. So,
right.
It is a wait and see. We are still recording this on Wednesday, but the Philly game, upper 30s, light breeze, but could be some showers depending on just what directions these winds are going and what have you. And then the Baltimore-Buffalo game, which is a big deal because it's a 51-point total right now. Supposed to be the worst cold weather game of the weekend. It's already right now projecting to be in the teens during the game time. On top of that, there could be some high winds, possible rain/snow.
Right.
So really have to take a look at that. Maybe bet the under if you have it right now. I know when we did our breakdowns, we'll talk about scores and what have you as well. But just keep those things in mind as you're doing builds.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get into the first game. I'm good on this slate. Perfect. If you want to go over to the most, and as we said before, we are going to be doing this in a full video, and then we're going to be splitting these into individual videos.
Yeah, check out the Saturday ones, and we once again the main slate that we did break down. That was a whole lot of fun because the prices are juicy on this main slate.
So we're going to go into the Buffalo Bills versus Baltimore Ravens slate on the other side. Baltimore is going to be the away team. I think it's a -1 to Buffalo, right? Is that?
It's -1 to Baltimore now.
To Baltimore, okay.
Yeah. They're going to probably flip or become it's basically a pick 'em.
Yeah. I agree with that
these
number.
Are the two MVP favorites. Obviously, Lamar has flipped to being a big favorite because he was first team All-Pro. Josh Allen was second team. They're not going to give the MVP to somebody second team All-Pro. So that's kind of what sealed it in our eyes. But again, both teams kind of riding hot, and we are actually on different sides of this game.
Yes, we are. And I'm excited about this game. Like I said, Zay Flowers. I did want to do an update real quick. We don't expect Zay to play. He has an issue with his knee still, and he did not practice Wednesday. So that kind of tells us that it's a long shot, to say the least. I'm not necessarily on Zay in this game, but it also helps me boost these other guys that are around him. So let's take him off. Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and then Nelson Aguilar are the main benefactors of Zay not playing. Rashad Bateman has been the #1 receiver. Mark Andrews the #1 tight end, but Isaiah Likely gets a boost in snap count when Zay is out because of the fact that he is a pass-catching tight end. So, but yeah.
And also Isaiah Likely had a season high 80% of the snaps, and that's what we called out. We weren't saying, oh yeah, they're just going to immediately put in somebody to run cardio 80% of the time. They're going to give their second or third best pass catcher, depending on how you view
for sure.
Zay Flowers. Like, he's been really solid with limited usage this year, but we've seen upside from him. He was week 1, our first ever showdown breakdown. That was our tournament play, and he smashed, absolutely smashed. And so we're going to kind of run it back to the well that hopefully this is just a closer game to where maybe he flirts with a 7 to 10 target kind of night, because that's what he was trending towards against Pittsburgh. They just got up so early. But yeah, 353 this past week. I think he led the team in receiving yards.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really need to throw the ball. Him 5,600. I'm hoping that people are like, ooh, I don't want to pay 56 for a tight end too. And we just swoop right in and just benefit off of that.
Fair. The tight end one on the other side, though, Mark Andrews, 6,600. Reasonable play, good in the red zone, has 11 touchdowns. So he actually broke his streak of touchdowns
we
this
knew that
last
regression
week.
was coming. He had 10 touchdowns in 11 games, and we were underweight on him this past week. Ended up being on the right side of that. But again, it was one of those things where it's not like we were right and he had a bad game. They just didn't need to use him.
Yes.
The thing is, he has somewhat of a lower floor than we've seen in years past, but he's just one of the best red zone threats, especially the best red zone threat on the team. So 6,600, very reasonable. I think he's the only guy really in that range, other than Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
That I'd really be interested in confidently.
I think the weather hurts Mark Andrews. Funny
You
enough.
think?
Because I think they'll, like, the red zone opportunities, they're going to be giving the ball to Derrick Henry as much as possible. Rashad Bateman, 7,400, another guy that we've got to talk about just because he has the boom upside. He isn't necessarily just consistent, but he does have certain weeks where he goes for 2 touchdowns. He's had 5 touchdowns in 5 weeks. He's got 10 touchdowns on the year. So you have to talk about him, but he's not necessarily going to be consistent, and especially in a weather game like this. So I don't know where to go with him, but how much I want to play of him, but he's expensive.
74 is tough to get to. I think it just kind of comes down to, are you playing all 3 of the guys up top?
Right.
And obviously the name of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen, all of them, I don't even really have to state a case because of how good they are. But you can't, if you do go all 3,
can't
afford any of the guys in the middle.
Right.
It has to be stars and scrubs. So if you're able to fade one comfortably, that's the way you're going to, I feel, be different, because I feel like everybody's just going to go, all 3 or 2 of the 3, and one of them being the captain.
Right, for sure. Nelson Aguilar, $2,000. He's at least going to be on the field.
Yep.
And Tylan Wallace actually was on the field too. Want to shout him out. What was his number? He had a big snap count.
Yeah, he had 51% of the snaps.
51, okay.
This past week. Again,
So,
he's kind of running routes, but also they were playing from ahead.
Right, so I think he probably
but
got in for that.
If he has 2 targets and catches 1 for 21 yards like he did last week, that's going to smash for only being $1,000, and you're trying to just find ways to get salary.
Yep. Let's go ahead and talk about Derrick Henry and Justice Hill real quick. Derrick Henry, you have to get him as much as possible. In their first, 186 yards, 138, 147, 162 in the last 4 weeks. I mean, he's just been great, so I don't know why you get away from him here. Guy that, we're going to be talking about the top 3. I don't know that I think he might be the easiest one to say I'm going to for sure be getting to him, especially in the weather and all that stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, it just really gets to him. Last time these 2 teams played, he was the biggest winner of it all. He had 39 fantasy points, over 200 all-purpose yards. But Justice Hill also had nearly 100 yards in that same game.
Yep.
Him being 4,800, I brought up on the main slate that nobody is going to play him, especially on the main slate because of how many good running backs are and the fact that you don't need that cheap.
Right.
Well, on Showdown slates where you kind of need to get different a little bit and stuff like that, he's right in the middle of like the defenses, the kickers, and the cheap, wide receivers that you got to decide between.
Yep.
I don't think anybody's going to play him, but he's got the same damn matchup that Derrick Henry does. So I think last week, remember, he did miss a couple games due to concussion, and Derrick Henry took all the workload instead of them
anybody
keep
else
on splitting. He came back his last game, had 39% of the snaps, which is basically what he had been. He's been between 35 and 50% the entire season. So, yeah, 4,800. He's a pass catching back.
Yep.
If he can find a way to get to 8 points, plus if there's weather and there's just more of an opportunity for check downs and stuff like that, I think he's a great tournament play.
I mean, if you look at the last times that he's been on the field, 4 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets. I can get behind that all day at 4,800, plus the rushing is an option. He does break off big plays too, so he's definitely a guy that I want to get to. I don't know how many lines I'll be making, though, so if he doesn't make it into a line, it wouldn't surprise me, but he's a guy that if I get one of him in 3 lines, I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's showing less than 10% ownership,
Mm-hmm.
so it speaks for itself with the opportunities that he possibly can have.
Yep, and then going to the other side, Josh Allen is your other $11,000 guy. Talking about his pass catchers, you got to go to Khalil Shakur, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, and Keon Coleman. I'll put all of them on there. Matt Collins and Dawson Knox, and then don't forget about Curtis Samuel. I'm brand out of spots. So basically, it's a giant shit show.
They're one of the few teams that just straight up run 5 receivers pretty evenly. Basically, all of them play like 70% or between 30 and 70% of the snaps, and never really kind of phases that. Even though Khalil Shakir has been the most consistent one. One, he's not a red zone threat because he only has 4 touchdowns on the year, but he's just 8 to 10 floor,
Right.
which is solid. But rarely is he exceeding that floor to get a ceiling game. Against the Rams in that big old total game, 86-point total, he had 100 yards after a 50-yard touchdown. But other than that, he's not really breaking 15 fantasy points. I mean, he had that one time. He had a 19-point game.
3 times this year.
Basically, when he scored, he has, but very rarely has he scored. So him being 8,000, it's a weird range to try to afford that. But again, he's one easy click if you just price didn't matter and you just wanted the most consistent Bills pass catcher. But him being 8,000, that's the thing that makes it tougher. On the main slate, completely on board with getting to him on Josh Allen builds. But 8,000, I don't even know if you need to go that high.
Fair. And then going to the other guys, Amari Cooper, I'm not sure what to do with him. Dalton Kincaid at 5,800, at least I know he's more consistent. Keon Coleman is a red zone threat, so at 3,600, I am actually excited to play him somewhat. And then Dawson Knox is 2,800. Matt Collins, 3,200. It's just a lot of guys, a lot of names, but the ones I really want to play are these 3, probably, if I am going to be getting to anybody.
Right, and I think Shakir will probably be the most popular bill, but I actually have no idea how the ownership's going to distribute between the Amari Coopers, the Keon Colemans, the Curtis Samuels, even.
Right.
Obviously, Matt Collins is my least interest, even though he has the most consistent snap share. He's the one that does the cardio the most.
Right.
At least Samuel, when he is a wide receiver 5 in terms of snap share, he still has the boom plays we saw last week with the 50-yard touchdown, and he also has the underneath stuff as well. Him being 2,400, back-to-back games with double-digit points, so pretty solid output from him. Like you said, Keon Coleman, red zone threat. He had a couple of red zone targets last week, just didn't convert. Only had 1 catch. But he was still working his way back from injury as well. He did have 61% of the snaps, and they made it a priority to get him on the field in Week 18 when other people were resting. He had 97% of the snaps in Week 18, 90% in Week 17.
Ridiculous.
So that being 3,600 and being a possible red zone threat, I think I'm on board with you on that one.
Cool. And then let me clear this. Let's talk about the running back. We did, James Cook has been good, but not getting the touches. So he makes me the most nervous out of all the guys at the top of the pricing, just because of the touch issues.
Yeah, it's just, what are we doing with the Ray Davis implying that he's out? Does that mean that James Cook is going to have 23 opportunities like he did last week and have 100 yards and a touchdown?
Right.
Or is it going to be, hey,
Split.
he's probably going to have 16 to 18, and then Ty Johnson will have 10 and possible catching, because he's had multiple games where he's had the receiving upside and downfield upside. What was it a couple weeks back? Yeah, the Detroit game where he had multiple 30-yard receptions.
Yes.
And it was just like, oh, okay. And the week before that, 55 yards receiving. And so he's just been the running back 3. But if he's the running back 2, then he has a similar workload. So last week in a blowout, had 11 touches. Very efficient with those numbers. 70 yards all-purpose on those 11 touches. 4,400. That's pretty. Would you say that even though we did talk about our enjoyment of Justice Hill, say Ray Davis is out?
I'm higher on Ty Johnson. Yeah.
There we go.
And we'll talk about him more in a minute, because we're about to get into some of our other stuff. I want you to tell the people the wrong game script for everyone.
So maybe I might bring this point total down a little bit because of the impending weather. It's the wait and see. I just can't get over the way that Baltimore beat them down. And I know it is hard to beat teams twice, but the way they did, it was 35-10. That was the lowest fantasy output the entire season of Josh Allen, second lowest of James Cook, respectively. And they just dominated them from literally the first play where Derrick Henry took off for a 75-yard touchdown. If it is a weather game, I think that just benefits Baltimore even more, because it means that Lamar doesn't have to do the, a bunch of things in his hands, and again, he's trying to break in a playoff narrative himself.
Right.
So Josh Allen's the one that has really nothing to lose in that regard because he has been the one playing well. He just can't get over Mahomes. Whereas Lamar has basically, if he's a double-digit touchdown favorite, he's played awesome. But when he is a close game, a lot of times he has left a lot on the field to be desired. So he has more to play for, but if it is cold weather, that just means, hey, you know what? Instead of me trying to force things, I'm just going to give the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times, and that's how we're going to get to the AFC Championship.
Fun. So I'm on the other side. I'm actually I have something for you. You can see it now on the screen. I'm picking Buffalo. The score is 21-20. So 1 point to the Buffalo Bills. I think that whoever has the ball last is going to win the game, and I think that Buffalo gets the ball at the end of the game and walks it down and scores. Last meeting was in September, the game that you're talking about. That was September 29th.
Yep.
Buffalo, and we talked about this on the other show when we picked our playoff and went through it, but I'll reiterate if you haven't seen that yet. Buffalo has not lost a game at home this whole year. They did play at Baltimore when they lost that game earlier in the year. Baltimore has choked in the playoff in recent years, and they haven't shown that they can't do that. And then it's hard to beat the same team twice. I know that we talked about it, especially, though, in my personal opinion, when you get embarrassed, you always play so much harder. So I just lean that way. Talking about builds, Allen is greater than Lamar to me.
Okay.
That's how I feel. And then you need 2 out of 3, in my personal opinion. Allen, Henry, Lamar could do 3 out of 3, but I just lean Allen and Henry more than I do with Lamar here. That's just my personal thoughts. I think that that's how the game just goes. If you look at my must play and your must play, they're my 2 favorite guys, Josh Allen and Derrick Henry. So I picked Josh Allen because
I don't think you can get off Derrick Henry in this slate, and I think you got to play at least one of the quarterbacks.
Right.
So if Josh Allen's your preference, he also is $400 cheaper, so I don't mind that at all. And honestly,
sorry, I was gonna say the reasoning was I like the pass catchers; they're cheaper, right. And it makes more sense if it's better.
Correlate.
Yeah, easier to correlate.
And I know Lamar, is known as one of the best dual threat quarterbacks of all time. He's already exceeded like a Mike Vick or anything that you want to bring up. At least fantasy wise this year, he hasn't really had the rushing touchdown upside. I think he only has 4 on the year, and on top of that, he's only had 1 game since week 5 that he has at least 10 rushing attempts. Which maybe that'll increase because he had 15 last week, but Josh Allen has been the one to have the rushing upside. So he's been one where. He had a stretch where he had a touchdown, 3 touchdowns, two touchdowns, and then a touchdown all on the ground. And that also doesn't include the passing upside. And they live and die by him.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. He has no Derrick Henry to lean on. So, yeah, I'm completely on board with him being the preference over Lamar if you had to pick between one.
I picked obviously Buffalo to win. I don't know if you've watched Riley Leonard recently in these games, and obviously in the college football playoff. Like Josh Allen and Riley Leonard reminds me of that will to win, jumps over people. Like he's going to do it, and no matter what, he will make it happen. And so I could see a Josh Allen rushing touchdown where he's dragging 2 people. Wouldn't surprise me, and that's why I want that guy over Lamar, because Lamar has a lot of other people to lean on, while Josh has no one to lean on. He's just going to go do it himself, and I'm fine with that. That's why he's my must play over a Lamar. Fades, we had the same fade, which is good. It's Amari Cooper. We're both off of Amari.
It's just hard.
It is. And I'll actually pull up his stuff so everybody can see it.
And while you're doing that, I just want to bring up, I didn't have it in front of me, but I pulled it up just now. So want to read some fantasy game logs of Josh Allen in the playoffs if you want to show how much his upside has been and if it correlates with his regular season success.
Right, for sure.
And this is all DraftKings scoring. 27 fantasy points, 42, 41, 28, 18 was a dud, 33.5, 30, 25.5.
And how many of those games did he win? What about that dud?
Other than the Kansas City one and then the Cincinnati one, which obviously that was his worst one.
That was the 18.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had 1 dud and it was in a loss. Not like they were blowing them out. That was more of my question.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm okay with all those numbers. They make me feel good.
And that's in what is that, since 2021? So
yeah.
about going on a 4-year sample size. And then Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
Just
give me
wanna-
that one too, so I can see. Just I pulled Amari Cooper up, but we were talking obviously about something else.
No, you're good.
I'll
So
drop
Lamar
him.
Jackson, same kind of deal. And obviously there was a couple postseasons that he missed.
Right.
But a Tennessee game where they were a 2-touchdown favorite and they lost.
Okay.
As the 1 seed. And he had 28.8 fantasy points, but that was because he ran for 100 yards because they were down 21,
Right.
and he's playing catch up. Then he had 8.9. Then he had a 39 when they were a 2-touchdown favorite against Houston.
Okay.
Then 20.6, okay, but he had 3 turnovers in that game. And then last week against the Steelers, 23.1, solid.
So what games did he lose out of those games you just
So
told
he
me?
lost the Kansas City game,
Which was
the
how many?
20.6.
20.6. Okay.
Which I don't know if that'll get it done on this slate.
No.
8.9 was in a loss against Buffalo.
Okay.
That was a very infamous one. And then I don't even want to bring up 2020 and 2019.
Yeah.
That's
Whatever.
just
Fine.
like
Yeah.
ages ago. But essentially, again, playoff woes has been his name. And other than one where he was playing catch up and had the 100-yard bonus rushing, and that was obviously before Derrick Henry, that was the only one where in a loss he actually paid off.
Yeah. Fair. Okay. So yeah, I'm completely okay with my pick then. Josh Allen. I was going to talk about Amari Cooper. He's our fade. This is why, if you look at the last 4 weeks, he has 3 targets, 2 targets, and 0 targets. So I just can't get behind someone that is not getting the ball, and he has to score a touchdown to be worth anything. He's 6,400. It's a weird spot, especially if you want to go all 3 up top. So let's just get away from him and let's go build some lines. I want to hear your line first because I have a feeling.
Real quick, our tournament plays.
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah Likely is mine, which at the same time, if Zay Flowers gets ruled out before Sunday, I don't know how high owned he's going to be actually. Maybe that ends up not being tournament play territory, but I did want to point out, if this is a lower total game than you think and weather does play more of an impact, both defenses are $38,000 and $4,000. And we both have interest on those defenses on the main slate. So if you wanted to do that either of those guys makes a lot of sense as well.
Fair. My tournament play is Keon Coleman because you have to pick between that range, and then Ty Johnson are both guys I want to get to if Ray Davis is out. So if Ray Davis isn't out, I don't know that I want to go to Ty Johnson. But if he is out, like I'm expecting, concussion protocol.
But if Ray Davis is in, he's 1,400.
Oh,
and he's been the RB2. So that just opens up a whole lot for me, honestly. If he's in, he's might be my most confident, just cheap guy.
Yeah, fair.
And I don't expect limitations if he's playing from a concussion.
Right.
But usually you kind of expect that people are going to be out the following week from that. So if that's the case, like we've talked about, we made our case for Ty Johnson earlier. But yeah, I like both of those.
Okay, well then you are building a line. Let's go.
I'm building first?
Yeah, you're
All
up.
right. So my first build is going to include all 3. I'm not making a decision on 2 of the 3. I know.
Are you captaining?
Yes.
Which one?
So I'm going to captain Derrick Henry.
Okay.
Put both quarterbacks in.
Okay. Here we go.
And this is a little uncomfortable down low, but Isaiah Likely, my tournament play at 5,600 would be in. And then my last 2 guys in would be Keon Coleman.
Okay.
And then Tylen Wallace.
All
and
right.
again,
Then.
I'm building with anticipation that Zay Flowers will be out.
I mean, I get it. If you're going to play all 3, why not? Baltimore's been really good. It's not like I'm calling them out for that. It's just we've seen the woes from Lamar Jackson during the playoffs. So I will build mine. Mine will be a 2 out of 3, and so Lamar Jackson will be coming on my line. I'm going to do it in that way.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read because I know that it's pretty much the same exact thing you've got. I did have Josh at cap, though. I had Josh at cap and Derrick Henry. Not Tylen. And cap.
I know what you built.
You have it. Yeah. Isaiah Likely. Where is... Oh, wait. He's already in there. Oh, okay. Who am I missing? Yeah. I put Khalil Shakur.
Mm-hmm.
And then, $4,400 Ty Johnson.
Yeah. As soon as I went off that and I was like, I think he's going to go Josh at captain, I was like, oh, yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah. Pretty
So,
easy.
yeah,
Pretty easy to get to. Both of my tournament plays. And then your tournament play.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen, Khalil Shakur, the most consistent of the receivers. Derrick Henry, You have to have him. You could even put him at captain. Wouldn't kill me. Or you could pull my leg. It's fine. It's not that big a deal.
I'm also intrigued by what are your thoughts on an Isaiah Likely captain?
Let's try it. I don't care.
Is that viable?
You better put all three in.
No. That
you have to put all
obviously
three.
I'm doing that. To afford that, he'd be 84.
Oh yeah. He's under.
Yeah, I'd never recommend really cheap guys down low if you're going to go a mid-tier captain, or you have to afford all the guys that are important. So.
Right. But then it gets uncomfortable. Curtis Samuel's. I'm not against Curtis Samuel.
Yeah. So that's what I had was I put in Curtis Samuel, and then the last guy in was you pick a kicker or either running back. But those were kind of my thoughts on if you were trying to do one of these kinds of builds, like mid-tier builds. I think both Mark Andrews and Likely are captain viable because of the ability to afford all three up top.
What does that do price-wise?
He's 99.
35? Damn.
That's not enough.
100.
Unfortunately.
All right, so they did that on purpose.
But if you went down to Nelson Aguilar instead of Curtis Samuel, you could afford Keon.
Which
that would be
I'd be more comfortable with, probably.
That'd be a 4-2 build.
Yeah, which is fine. I don't think that I do not think there's a 5-1 that I'm going to be comfortable with, but I think 4-2 on either side or 3-3 is going to be something I definitely will get behind. So I'm not against either of those builds. It's a fun slate, man. It's a really great slate. I might make more than one line in this slate just because you could either go 3 up top, you could go 2 up top, you could go with a mid-price captain, you could go, a lot of different ways. So this might be a slate where I get a couple more lines than just a single entry, but it's a very fun slate in my personal opinion.
And a lot of times with high totals or like really high spend-ups that you want to get to, you always have to ask this question when we asked this in our Saturday video for the Detroit-Washington game because the total's so high. Can you eat a 0 and go min? Is that even an option to you?
Yeah.
Or because of all the randomness, you think you'd rather just kind of play the balance?
But do you need to eat a 0 when you have $1,000 Tylan Wallace?
That's what I'm asking.
So who would your 0 be is the question. Like, I don't know what RotoWire has because they...
Let's see. RotoWire has Devontae Walker as having a catch, basically, for 2 yards.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. But, again, doing that and affording one of those big 3 up top and then also affording the other 2, is it worth doing that? Or do you just want to make a decision on one being faded or doing a mid-tier captain?
Well, let's just throw someone in. I don't even care, really.
Yeah, just throw it.
Keaton Mitchell.
Sure.
He's $200.
He's healthy and active last week. But, we're just...
whatever.
We're spitballing.
It's $2,100. Is it worth putting one of these guys a captain? That's the real question to me. I just did this and then put in Isaiah Likely. Oh, Mark Andrews is 100 short.
It's fine. I don't mind going up to because you can afford Isaiah Likely and Ty Johnson.
Yeah,
in that regard.
It's fine with me.
Or just leave salary on
Keon
and keep Keon in because probably he more naturally builds with Josh Allen.
Fair, but I don't hate this. This is fun. I mean, it's a fun slate. So, like, get as much exposure to all these guys as you can. Play the 10 cent, 20 max, and make a whole bunch of lines.
And there's a lot of free contests this week, too.
There are,
so there's almost a free contest, and there's 2 in the main, and I know there was one with the first showdown we did. I don't know if I've checked on the others, but, it's playoff season, so they like to do giveaways and stuff like that and free opportunities. There's a lot of quarter contests out there. You see our bankroll starting to build up a little bit, so... just make sure that you're looking into those things. Yeah, there's a free one for
KC versus Houston. There's a free one for Washington, Detroit. There's a free one for every game.
Every game. There's
That's
a free
fun.
One. So you need to be playing every single game. I don't care if you invest money or not, but there's a free contest. So they're trying to give you their money. So you might as well just try to take it.
Yep, absolutely. But let me stop sharing, and we will get on out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. This video will be broken up into both slates. So... I know you're actually at the end of this, so if you're like, well, I meant to watch the Philly game and only saw this one game, it's on a different video. We broke it into 2. We also have a full video if you want to watch the whole thing. So just watch whatever you want. We're gonna have a whole bunch of stuff, and then we'll get into we also have a main slate, so watch that too.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. please do all the things and watch all these contests. Again, we like to play everything. We sprinkle all around and we hand build. For the time being, we don't have an optimizer. We will one day be able to provide that as an add-on and interact that way. And that's going to completely change and reshape how we do these kinds of videos, because we'll be talking more so about exposures than we will about hand building and what
Right.
have you. And we won't be posting lines. We'll just be posting either exposures or leans or stands that we do, because we like to take stands more than others. We don't just like, hey, I'm going to be underweight, but I'm still going to be 30% to this guy.
If you've watched this show, I will take 0% of the chalkiest running back, and I do
It
not
works
care.
a lot of the
do
time.
not care.
Yeah, we talked about last week where Bucky Irving was the chalk of the chalk, and he was over 50% owned, and we were like, there's too many good running backs to be 50% owned, so we faded him, and he did okay, but he didn't do enough. So all those things we think about, but again, we're closing out our first year doing this, and it's been a whole lot of fun doing, and we're just excited for the off-season content. Obviously, national championship is this weekend or this Monday, and we have a divisional round of football. It's the peak football season, and then once it's done, we're gonna be going right into draft content, reviewing how we did this past year, and then what's to come, free agency, all that stuff. We're gonna cover it all, and then we're gonna try to do some entertaining ones as well.
Absolutely. So we really appreciate y'all hanging out, and stay tuned because we got a lot going on, and we appreciate y'all just being part of the community, helping us build it. We're slowly, we're getting bigger, so
Yes,
it's
sir.
very exciting. So we will see you on the next one.